What if I told you that the greatest revolution in computing, the leap that will define the next century of technology, isn't about getting smaller or faster, but about learning how to stand perfectly still? For over half a century, we've built our digital world on a simple, frantic principle: push things around. But that era is ending, and what comes next is found not in motion, but in a property of matter so fundamental and so strange, it's been hiding in plain sight all along. Take a moment and look around you. The screen you're watching this on, the device in your hand or on your desk, the vast invisible network of the internet that brought this to you, the lights in your room, the car in your garage. Every single piece of our modern civilization is built upon an invisible pillar. That pillar is the electron, and, more specifically, its charge. For decades, this has been the bedrock of everything we call digital. Think of it like a massive, intricate system of plumbing. Our engineers became master plumbers, designing ever more complex pipes and valves, we call them. Transistors and circuits, too, control the flow of a river of electrons. A 1 was a pulse of current, a gush of water flowing through the pipe. A 0 was the absence of that flow, the tap turned off. From this simple on-off binary, we built everything: calculators, video games, life-saving medical equipment, and artificial intelligence that can write poetry. We got incredibly good at this. Gordon Moore, a co-founder of Intel, famously observed that the number of transistors we could cram onto a chip would double roughly every 2 years. This relentless pace, known as Moore's Law, was the engine of progress. Chips got smaller, faster, and cheaper. But every river has its limits. Imagine that system of plumbing shrinking to the size of a city block, then a single house, then a shoebox, and now to the width of a few dozen atoms. The pipes are now so small and packed so tightly together that the very act of pushing water, or electrons through them, generates an immense amount of friction. In the world of electronics, that friction is heat. Our chips are running into a fundamental thermal wall. They are getting so hot that they risk melting themselves. We can't simply push the electrons harder or faster without consequence. The very motion that gave us power is now our greatest limitation. It's wasteful, it's slow, and it's a physical dead end. The pillar that has held up our world is starting to crack under the strain. We have extracted every last drop of potential from moving charge, and now humanity needs a new way forward. The solution, it turns out, was inside the electron all along. We've spent a century treating the electron like a simple marble, a tiny ball with a negative charge that we could push around. But this view is tragically incomplete. The electron has a secret, a hidden dimension of incredible power. It's a quantum mechanical property called spin. Now, the word spin is a little misleading. The electron isn't literally spinning like a tiny basketball on your fingertip. It's a more profound, intrinsic property, like its charge or its mass. The best way to visualize it is to imagine that every single electron is also a microscopic, perfect magnet. It has a north pole and a south pole. In a magnetic field, this tiny compass needle doesn't just point in any random direction. It snaps into one of two positions: spin up or spin. And right there, in that simple, binary choices, the revolution. Think about what this means. To represent a 1 or a 0 using charge, we had to physically move a crowd of electrons from point A to point B. It was an act of brute force, a marathon run to deliver a message. To represent a 1 or a 0 using spin, we don't have to move the electron at all. We just need to flip it. The electron can stay right where it is, and we can change its state from spin up to spin down with a tiny nudge of a magnetic field. It's the difference between shouting a message across a crowded, noisy room versus simply holding up a card that says YES or no. One requires immense energy, creates a lot of commotion, and suffers from delays. The other is instantaneous, silent, and incredibly efficient. This is the core promise of the new field of Spintronics, spin transport electronics. By harnessing this hidden property, we can process information without the frantic, heat-generating motion of electrons. We can eliminate the friction, the waste, and the speed limits imposed by physically shuffling charge around. We are on the verge of learning how to compute with the silent flip, tapping into a power that has been waiting, patiently, inside every atom of the universe. This might sound like a distant, science fiction dream, but the truth is, you are likely already using a primitive form of Spintronics every single day. The first major breakthrough in this field won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2007 for the discovery of giant magnetoresistance, or G. This effect is the magic behind the read heads in modern hard disk drives. It allowed us to pack incredible amounts of data onto spinning platters by using spin to sense tiny magnetic bits. GMR was the proof of concept. It showed us that harnessing spin wasn't just possible, it was commercially powerful. But that was just the appetizer. The main course, the technology that promises to completely redefine the chip itself, is the magnetic tunnel junction, or MT. Imagine a microscopic sandwich. The two slices of bread are made of a ferromagnetic material, a substance that can be permanently magnetized. The filling in the middle is an incredibly thin insulating barrier, just a few atoms thick. It's so thin that, thanks to the bizarre rules of quantum mechanics, electrons can sometimes tunnel right through it. Here's where the magic happens. The state of the two magnetic bread slices, their spin alignment determines how easily electrons can make that quantum leap. If both magnetic layers are pointing in the same direction, say, both spin up, the device is in a low-resistance state. Electrons can tunnel through relatively easily. We can call this state A1. But, if the two layers are pointing in opposite directions, one up, one down, the device enters a higher resistance state. It becomes much harder for electrons to pass through. We can call this a zero. Do you see the breakthrough? We have a solid-state device, with no moving parts, that can be flipped between two distinct states. It's a perfect memory bit. But it's more than that. Because its state is read by passing a current through it, and its state can be changed by influencing it with spin. It's also a processing element. The MTJ isn't just a storage container. It's a tiny computational unit. It both remembers and calculates. In one elegant, atomic-scale device, we have merged memory and processing. This isn't just an improvement on the old transistor model. It's a complete paradigm shift. We're moving away from building computers that work like assembly lines and toward building computers that work like a brain. For the entire history of modern computing, our machines have been built around a fundamental limitation known as the von Neumann architecture. It's a design that separates the two most important parts of a computer: the processor, the CPU, which does the thinking, and the memory, the RAM, which holds the data. Think of it as a brilliant chef, the CPU working in a kitchen. But the pantry with all the ingredients, the RAM, is located down a long, narrow hallway. No matter how fast the chef can chop and cook, he is constantly bottlenecked by the time it takes to run down the hall. Grab one ingredient, run back, and then repeat the process for the next ingredient. This constant, and Eggington's vi-e-volte, this back-and-forth commute between memory and processors, the single biggest performance killer in every computer on the planet. We call it the von Neumann bottleneck. Now, consider the human brain. Your brain doesn't have a separate CPU and RAM. When you remember the face of a loved one, the memory isn't stored in one part of your brain and then shipped to another part for processing. The neurons that store the memory are the processors. Memory and computation are deeply, physically intertwined. A synapse doesn't just hold information. It actively participates in the calculation. This is why the brain, while operating at the slow speed of biochemistry, can perform tasks like facial recognition or understanding language with an efficiency that still dwarfs our most powerful supercomputers. The magnetic tunnel junctions we just discussed are the first real technological step toward mimicking this brilliant biological design. By creating devices where the memory bit, the spin state, is also the computational element, we are dissolving that hallway between the kitchen and the pantry. The chef is now standing inside the pantry. Every ingredient is within arm's reach. With these Spintronic devices, data isn't moved. It's processed right where it lives. This architectural leap, known as in-memory computing or neuromorphic computing, eliminates the von Neumann bottleneck. It promises a future where our chips are not just vast grids of on-off switches, but complex, interconnected networks that, in a very real sense, think more like a brain. Why is this brain-like efficiency so desperately needed right now? The answer can be summed up in two letters: AI. The rise of artificial intelligence, particularly large language models like GPT and massive neural networks for image recognition, has created a data tsunami. These models are not just programs. They are continent-sized digital structures built from trillions of connections. And training them requires an almost unimaginable amount of data processing. Let's put this in perspective. Training a single high-end AI model can consume more electricity than 100 US homes do in an entire year. The carbon footprint can be equivalent to hundreds of round-trip flights between New York and San Francisco. The data centers that power our cloud and AI services are becoming one of the largest consumers of energy on the planet. We are building a future powered by intelligence, but that intelligence has a voracious, unsustainable appetite for power. This is where the efficiency of Spintronics isn't just a nice-to-have. It's a necessity. With in-memory computing built on MTJs, the game changes completely. When an AI needs to perform a calculation across 1 billion data points, it no longer has to shuttle those billion points back and forth between memory and a processor. Instead, the calculation happens simultaneously, in parallel, across the entire memory fabric. Every single bit on the chip, every tiny Spintronic device, becomes an active participant in the calculation at an atomic scale. The energy that was wasted on data transfer, which can be up to 90% of the total energy used in some computations, simply vanishes. The heat generated by that frantic movement also disappears. The time spent waiting for data is eliminated. We're talking about orders of magnitude improvements in performance per watt. For the era of AI, which is defined by the challenge of processing trillions of data points in real time, this isn't just an upgrade. It's the enabling technology. It's the difference between an AI future that is limited to a few massive, power-hungry data centers, and a future where powerful, efficient AI can run on your phone, in your car, or in a tiny medical implantal, without draining a battery in minutes. Let's get a little more specific. What kind of calculations are we talking about? At the heart of almost every neural network and AI algorithm lies a simple but repetitive mathematical operation: multiply, accumulate, or MAC. Imagine you're trying to recognize a cat in a photo. The AI looks at a group of pixels and assigns a weight to each one. A pointier-shaped pixel pattern gets a high weight. A patch of blue sky gets a low weight. The AI then multiplies the value of each pixel by its corresponding weight and adds them all together. If the final sum crosses a certain threshold, it concludes, that's a cat. Now, imagine doing this multiplication and addition billions upon billions of times per second. That is the brute force work of a... In a traditional computer, each MAC operation is a clumsy, multi-step process. 1. Fetch the pixel value from memory. 2. Fetch the weight value from memory. 3. Send both to the processor. 4. The processor multiplies them. 5. The result is stored temporarily. 6. This is repeated for all the other pixels. 7. Finally, all the results are fetched and added together. It's a traffic jam of data. With Spintronics and in-memory computing, this entire sequence is transformed. The MAC operation happens directly within the physical memory array. By applying specific voltages, the multiplication and addition can be performed as a single collective physical process governed by the laws of electromagnetism, specifically Ohm's law and Kirchhoff's law. The answer isn't calculated step by step. It emerges from the collective state of the system almost instantaneously. The result is processing that is not just fast, but fundamentally different in its nature. The timescales we're talking about are measured in picoseconds. To give you a sense of what that means, 1 picosecond is to 1 second what 1 second is to over 31,700 years. It's a speed so blisteringly fast that it's nearly incomprehensible. And it's a realm that traditional, charge-based transistors simply cannot reach due to their physical limitations. This is the practical, tangible advantage that will allow Spintronic-powered AI to operate at a speed and efficiency that feels like magic. So far, we've talked about Spintronics as a way to replace the electron's charge, to do what we already do, but better, faster, and more efficiently. But what if spin could do things that charge-based computing can't even dream of? What if it could unlock entirely new modes of thinking for our machines? This is where things take a turn for the truly In the quantum world, there is an inherent randomness, a fizz of uncertainty that we call quantum noise. For a classical engineer, noise is the enemy. It's static, it's interference, it's a source of errors to be eliminated at all costs. But, in Spintronics, this bug can become a powerful feature. The spin of an electron is a quantum property, and it's susceptible to this natural, thermal-driven randomness. It can spontaneously flip. Instead of fighting this, some researchers are designing spintronic circuits that leverage it. They can use this inherent randomness as a built-in creativity engine for the computer. This opens the door to architectures like probabilistic computing. A normal computer bit is a definite 1 or 0. A probabilistic bit, or p-bit, is a device that rapidly fluctuates between 0 and 1. And its output is a probability, say, 70% likely to be a 1 and 30. A network of these spintronic p-bits can solve certain problems exponentially faster than a classical computer. What kind of problems? Think of trying to find the absolute best route for a delivery truck to visit 1,000 different cities, the classic traveling salesman problem. A normal computer would have to check a near infinite number of routes, one by one. A probabilistic computer can explore the entire landscape of possible solutions at once, using the inherent randomness to shake the system until it settles into the best possible answer. This is perfect for complex optimization, drug discovery, and financial modeling. Even more exciting is the potential for generative and creative AI. An AI built on deterministic, logical bits is very good at analyzing and recreating patterns it has already seen. But an AI that can tap into a true source of physical randomness, the quantum jitter of an electron's spin, can make intuitive leaps. It can generate truly novel ideas, art, and music. It could escape the confines of its training data and exhibit a form of digital imagination. By embracing the chaos, we might just be building our first truly creative machines. When people hear words like quantum and spin, their minds often leap to the ultimate frontier, quantum computing. And they're right to make the connection. While the spintronics we've discussed so far are largely classical in their application, they form a crucial and practical bridge to the quantum realm. A quantum computer's power comes from its fundamental unit, the qubit. Unlike a classical bit that is either a 0 or a 1, a qubit can be both 0 and 1 at the same time, a state known as superposition. This allows it to perform a vast number of calculations in parallel. So, what can we use as a physical qubit? Researchers have tried many things: trapped ions, superconducting loops, photons. But one of the most promising candidates is the spin of a single, isolated electron. A spin-up electron can be 1, a spin-down can be 0, and its quantum superposition is a state of being both simultaneously. An electron's spin is a natural qubit. Here is the game-changing connection. A huge amount of current research is focused on creating these spin qubits inside of silicon. Yes, the very same material we've spent the last 70 years and trillions of dollars mastering for our traditional chip industry. By isolating a single electron in a tiny silicon structure called a quantum dot, we can control and read its spin state using electrical fields. This is profoundly important. It means we don't necessarily have to invent an entirely new exotic manufacturing industry from scratch to build powerful quantum computers. We can potentially adapt the existing hyper-advanced fabrication plants, the fabs that build our CPUs and memory chips today. This approach dramatically lowers the barrier to entry and makes the dream of a scalable, industrially produced quantum computer far more viable. Spintronics, therefore, isn't just a competitor to classical computing. It's a direct evolutionary pathway that leads us right to the doorstep of the quantum age. Now, after all this talk of brain-like computers, creative AI, and a bridge to the quantum world, it's important to take a breath and plant our feet firmly on the ground. This revolution, like all revolutions, is not yet won. The promise of Spintronics is immense, but the engineering challenges are equally formidable. The first major hurdle is stable control. The very quantum nature that makes spin so powerful also makes it fragile. An electron's spin is incredibly sensitive to its environment, to stray magnetic fields, to thermal vibrations, to a phenomenon called quint. The challenge is to precisely control the spin of billions of electrons on a chip, flipping them when we want to and ensuring they stay put when we don't, all while the universe is doing its best to randomize them. Next is reliability and endurance. A memory cell in your computer needs to be able to be written and read billions, if not trillions, of times without failing. We need to ensure that our spintronic devices, these MTJs, can withstand that kind of punishment over a lifespan of years without degrading. And finally, there's the monumental task of manufacturing in mass. It's one thing to create a perfect, record-breaking device in a university laboratory. It's another thing entirely to produce billions of them on a single 12-inch silicon wafer with near-perfect uniformity and at a cost that can compete with the deeply entrenched transistor industry. But make no mistake, this is not just academic theory. The race is on. Major corporations like IBM, Samsung, and Intel are pouring resources into Spintronics research. Specialized companies like Everspin Technologies and NVE Corporation are already shipping Spintronic-based products. Specifically MRAM, magnetorized-resistive RAM, for niche applications. And a wave of nimble, brilliant startups is emerging from labs around the world, each tackling a different piece of the puzzle. The journey from research to a real, commercial product that changes the world is long and difficult, but the world's best minds are on the case. So, where does this leave us? We stand at a fascinating crossroads in the history of technology. For 50 years, our path was clear. Follow Moore's law. Squeeze more transistors onto a chip. Push more charge through the pipes. That path is now coming to an end. It has led us to a wall of heat and inefficiency. But just as one road closes, another opens. The shift from charge to spin isn't just a minor course correction. It's a turn onto a whole new highway. It's a move from a brute force mechanical world to an elegant, quantum-inspired one. It's a future of computing that is not only exponentially more powerful, but also fundamentally more in tune with the efficiency of the natural world, the architecture of our own brains. This journey from the humble discovery of spin to its application in hard drives, to the dream of brain-like chips that could power a new renaissance in AI, and even pave the way for quantum computers, is one of the most exciting stories in science today. The obstacles are real, but the momentum is undeniable. The lesson in all of this, for me, is about looking deeper. For a century, we saw the electron as a simple tool, a carrier of charge. We built our entire world on that one single property. But all along, it held a hidden, more profound potential within it. It's a powerful reminder that often, the greatest breakthroughs don't come from inventing something entirely new, but from discovering a hidden depth in something we thought we already understood completely. It teaches us to question our assumptions and to look for the spin in our own lives, the untapped, overlooked potential that could change everything. So, I want to leave you with a couple of questions to think about. What invisible pillars in your own life or work do you rely on without question? And what hidden properties might they hold if you looked at them from a completely new angle? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the future of computing. I hope it sparked some curiosity and gave you a glimpse of the incredible world we are on the verge of building. Please take care of yourselves and stay curious. If you enjoyed this exploration and want to dive deep into the technologies that are shaping our future, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support makes these deep dives possible. Until next time.